Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Keilani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves. Welcome back to Delightfully Dysfunctional. I'm Keilani, and I'm here with James.
Hi, guys.
And today, James came up with the topic I'm excited for us to discuss. So there's been like a sprinkling of some of your personal thoughts on this, but today we're condensing it, the juicy details.
Yeah, we're just ripping the Band-Aid off. So, and I mean, this is one topic that I've actually thought about, like implementing into one of our episodes since the beginning. And I alluded to this.
This microphone just wants you to slouch.
Yeah.
I've just watched you slowly sshrink down as the mic slides.
But yeah, this topic I alluded to in the very first episode from episode 2 technically, and that is infidelity, and that's what ruined my marriage, and I'm just as my commitment to vulnerability and transparency, I'm gonna I've I've envisioned that we would eventually talk about this, because I really feel like my experience with it is like really great information for people who have either been victims of or experienced it themselves or going through some version of infidelity right now. Because if I had the information that I have now, that like 5 years ago, then I really believe that I would not have done what I did, you know? And so my hope is that, well, let me just preface it with a disclaimer. Like, if we really get into it, it's going to be pretty triggering for people who have been victims of infidelity. But so I guess I'll just ask up front for your grace and understanding, and just know that I'm not that person today. I am a much, much different leveled up person from the person who did those terrible things. But I guess let's I just want to like get into it and get to the juicy stuff.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, James.
Yeah.
So the idea behind this was this thought of confessions of a cheater.
Confessions of a cheater. That's the provocative title.
I like it. Okay. As you think around the growth that you've experienced since all of this happened, how would you describe the differences in who you were then as a cheater versus now? Because this is pretty much the version that I've known, or the evolution of that in the last few years.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess you and I have been doing this, for over 2 years now, just over 2 years. And I mean, when we first started this, everything was like, I just gotten divorced, and, but I guess what I'll say is I'll kind of say everything I just said before we started recording about my discoveries, and then we can kind of reverse engineer it maybe.
Sure, man.
Okay. So the version that you see today is I kind of borrowed the term divine masculine, because the person when I had my affair, which was in 2020, that I didn't realize at the time that I had like this neglected inner child, and this other person that was not my wife came, and she sort of like fed that neglected inner child, and I became more drawn to her, because I didn't realize that I had this like thing, this part of me that I needed to deal with, but instead I was using her, my mistress, as an affair partner, or I mean, as an affair partner. I was using her as that too, but as a Band-Aid. And then so pretty soon I became like really attached to her, and then and I was like, but like logically I knew that it was wrong, but then I like the impulsive child inside of me had way more power than the logical side of me. So I was making decisions like a child, like an impulsive child, and then eventually, like years later, recently, I finally sat with like a lot of that unhealed stuff, and then like the most brutal process of my life, and then I allowed the pain to kind of show me where I needed to heal, and I allowed the healing. And then I started noticing like the emergence of the divine masculine part of me, which then reparented that neglected inner child version of me. So then now I've kind of like honored my inner child and my future self, the version that I want to become, and I'm becoming that version. And so like, but then that was amidst all the destruction that I had created in my life anyway, So.
Right. What were the tools that you found to get to a place where you saw this perspective? Like, were you journaling? Were you going to therapy? Was this just in like meditation or thoughts and musings before you fall asleep?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was really like, it was just like a whole, piecemealing of a bunch of different things. But I would say that the catalyst was I was in a relationship that ended several months ago now, and I was heartbroken, and I just hated, because I was so attached to this person, and I noticed like it was just the same pain that I had felt for every other like abandoned, like relationship where I felt abandoned. And so then I was like, okay, what is going, like I don't ever want to feel like this again. So I somehow stumbled on Brianna Wiest's book called When You're Ready, This Is How You Heal. And I listened to it, and it just, it resonated with me so much, and like every line. And so then I was over, and then I listened to it again, and I probably listened to it 12 times. And I'm still listening to it today. But in it, she talks a lot about, just like your inner child, like finding your authentic self, and how you have, and basically, I guess the thesis I got from it was like that I am not the sum of other people's opinions of me, and like that was a major thing. Like the neglected inner child was the way that it was, that my inner child was validated was like, there were certain parts of me that I had buried because of like overcorrection throughout my life. So if somebody came along and sort of like affirmed this part of me that had not been affirmed for years, then I would sort of like fall in love with that person, like, oh my gosh, that felt so good the way you did that. And so I realized that it needed to be me who affirmed that version of me, so like future self is still like the authentic inner child. When I was a child, I was the most authentic version of myself, but divine masculine is that same authentic self, but just like way more responsible and like way smarter and grown up, but still fun and like, creative and all that stuff. And so, I feel like I'm kind of all over the place, but that was one of the major breakthroughs for me,
It felt like it gave you a roadmap.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And it's, I guess I'm also curious about how this version of you honors your essential self more than the version of you that felt pulled by these attachments.
Yeah, well, I think it was because like the version that felt pulled by attachments was really just like I don't know. I wanted my view of myself was whatever people told me it was. And so I became like a really great people pleaser. Like, I'm good at making people laugh, but I was only making people laugh because, or like I was kind of like
to hide that insecurity.
Yeah. Or I was like molding myself to what would make you laugh. And it wasn't necessarily like me authentically, but, and so I don't know. I guess just if people had positive things, if they thought positive things about me, even if it wasn't like who I wanted to be, I would still sort of like masquerade as that person. I don't know. But yeah.
I think a piece of it is a very core need we have to feel like we belong.
Yeah.
And the things that we do to feel that way. And we grew up in different communities, but there were similarities as well. Like where I grew up was a lot more rural than where you grew up, although yours was still like country is what most people would consider it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I think there's a lot of elements that go into where we can find that insecurity. But a common one is that there weren't that many Asians where I grew up. Were there many Asians where you grew up?
Well, I mean, I grew up on the west side of the state, so there were a lot of Asians. Yeah. But then I moved to Grandview.
Right, that's what I was thinking.
In 95.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on in Grandview in 95.
I don't think there was an Asian. Not a single Asian.
Yeah, not a multicultural center.
There's more than one culture, but it's just two.
Right.
It's white and Hispanic.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. I notice that and have to catch myself in moments when I think I'm overcompensating or I'm in a new group and I want to be liked and I have to like sit with like, where is that coming from? Well, there's a long time of feeling kind of other in some way.
Yeah.
And I mean, part of your story is also having Tourette's, which means that there's something that is different that others see too.
Yeah.
I know you always like take it in stride and it's not something that feels like it holds you back, but I just think about any human when they're growing up. Most of us don't like feeling different. Yeah.
Well, ironically, I loved standing out and being like the center of attention. And so, like now that I'm single, if a woman wants to like win my heart, just laugh at all my jokes, you know? But, but then that became like, a trap for me. And because, this other woman, we'll give her a name. We'll call her Bertha. Yeah, Bertha. And anyway, so when Bertha, I wanted to give her like a pretty ugly name.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good. Okay, Bertha.
No offense to Berthas out there.
Yeah.
You are loved.
Thank you, delightful humans named Bertha.
Oh gosh, now I have to apologize because I just said it's an ugly name. There's a lady named Bertha who delivered my youngest
There's
child.
Beautiful Berthas in the world,
which I thought was great because her name is Bertha. Oh. Yeah, anyway, completely irrelevant. But so Bertha would laugh at all my jokes and just love bombing.
What I hear frustration with your mistress, and there are certainly manipulative things going on. What do you think wasn't being met for that to be in a situation that took root?
Like met in what wasn't being met in my marriage?
Yeah. And you can keep this or not keep this. Yeah.
I think that, I want to say that I absolutely was responsible for everything that I did. I was just kind of giving you guys like the juicy details, but I can't really say that there was needs that were being unmet in my marriage. I can say that I neglected a lot of things. Like I definitely don't want to put any blame on my wife. I mean, she wasn't the perfect wife, but she definitely was a good wife and she tried her best. And in retrospect, like the person that I am today with the knowledge that I have today, if I could go back 5 years, first of all, I would have never just met Bertha. I almost said her name again, but but then I didn't know about like curiosity and like best friendness and all that stuff. I would have gone to my wife and been like, how was your day? Like, tell me about everything. Like I would just like just one day start fresh and be like, I love you. I want to like just learn. Like, tell me how being a mom has been, stuff like that.
Like you stopped getting to know one another
right.
at some point.
And I feel like that was me who stopped that. And I was really selfish. I wasn't like a narcissist. I definitely did narcissistic things, but I was more of an egomaniac. Like I was doing well. I was getting a lot of like good attention that I liked, that I was craving, and then and my wife was, raising the kids, and we weren't like going on dates or like traveling or doing anything like that. And I think that Bertha was like this fun, big personality. And I was just like, wow, like she's like, where I want my life to be.
Kind of the opposite of what was going on.
Yeah. But like in retrospect, that was just like, I could have drawn that out of my wife. I could have like encouraged her. I could have loved her and been like the support to make her be like excited about life again, but I was selfish, and but then I definitely have like experienced the consequences for my actions. And, I've to answer your question, I think that it was me who was not meeting needs, Yeah.
When, this like regrets of a cheater or confessions of a cheater, right?
It's catchier.
Yeah. What? Let's see. You mentioned some things you wish you could go back and do differently. I guess I'm also wanting to know the lessons, and that's not wanting to like, this was a really shitty situation. It's a hard situation to be honest about. It carries a lot of regrets.
Yeah.
And at the same time, those moments in our life that feel like rock bottom and feel so difficult also carry these really deep lessons.
Yeah. So
what are things moving forward that you have focused as a goal or like a personal growth habit that you have or you're wanting to keep doing? Like what helps you move in this direction?
Sorry.
Well, this doesn't have to be exactly it, but I feel like when I think of resilience, it's like a trust in oneself. So you have absolutely. A different trust in yourself to navigate when shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
Or when maybe to even navigate and let yourself feel your emotions. So you're not in a situation that kind of a subconscious is really playing out some roles that cause some havoc. So it's like a different awareness of yourself.
Yeah. I mean, I would say that like betting on myself is like a new thing. Because, like after I self-sabotaged and like really burned my life down, sort of on accident, I then had to like rebuild everything. But it was like I'd shared before, where like when somebody has a broken arm or something, and then like when they're a kid and then it doesn't heal properly, and then the doctor has to go later and re-break their arm. So like I basically re-broke my whole life because I had a lot of childhood trauma and neglect. And I
do you think you knew that
about
like 5 years ago? Do you think if someone had asked about your childhood, you would have?
I would have probably, like I definitely knew, like my dad abused my mom in front of me when I was 4, and then they got divorced and she like left. I didn't see her till I was 12. So I mean, and then my dad was, I love my dad, rest in peace, but he was a single dad and with 2 boys, and he was busy and he never really like hugged us much, And so I was extremely neglected, and I mean, not to use that as an excuse for why I did what I did, but I mean, it was so I had like a lot of broken parts that I unintentionally at that season 5 years ago re-broke. And then I didn't realize, but then eventually I allowed healing, proper healing with all of that. And so now I'm kind of like, okay, I like who I am now. I really like who I am now, and this person is not who did all the awful things, The person who did the awful things was the one who was just sort of groping through the darkness through life, and I've always been a pretty charming person. So I had a lot of friends and people affirming me, but I was living on accident. So yeah, there it is in a nutshell. I'm just kidding.
I do have one more question though, actually. What do you think would have been signs that you would have noticed before the infidelity that there was maybe some inner work to be done? Did you have any idea?
Actually, yeah. There was one moment in particular in January of 2020 where I remember I went snowboarding with my son. I took him snowboarding, and I felt a really empty feeling. I love him and I was having fun with him, but I remember that day was like I had just had the best financial year of my life, and so I remember thinking I should be really happy. Why do I felt that's the only word I can think is just severe emptiness. And looking back on that, I still haven't ever felt that way since. But now, knowing what I know now, I think it was this starving inner child, and that was nobody's fault but my own, but there was no way for that I knew that that's what it was. I would later find out, but that was the warning sign. And then I thought I could just keep on doing what I was doing, and then I didn't realize that I basically had this ticking time bomb inside of me, but yeah, that's my answer.
And do you feel like moving forward, what would be the things that you pay attention to so that, we have lots of different parts, that there's not another part that you're aware of yourself? Or what are the ways that you try to...
Well, now, if I feel anxiety, usually that means that I'm not honoring a certain part of myself, that's what I've come to learn. And I always I'll do a recalibration day. And so the one thing recently that I discovered was that social media, I was sort of insidiously conditioning me to make myself feel less than, because I was I was comparing myself to others, and so if I start to feel that less than feeling, a little bit of depression, then I'll spend the whole day off of social media, and I'll usually feel 1,000 times better after that. And my authentic thoughts start coming back, because other people's influence is what will sort of dilute my authenticity, And so once I sat in that season, that month where I took off of social media, and I really sort of discovered my authenticity. And ever since I have experienced that and felt it, now it's become this objective, true north, where if I'm starting to kind of drift off of that feeling, then I'm okay, so I this is where I live now. This is my place of peace. This is my this is my center. So I'm going to all these things that are taking me off that course are now non-negotiable. I can't I need to limit those. So it's a feeling of peace, basically.
Yeah. I'm sure that there has been an apologies made.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that there's deep regret around everything that happened. What message to your younger self would you give if you could? If it was
Oh, man.
I mean, there's a few different perspectives one could have. If you could pass them a letter, what would it say?
Like which younger self? Like child self or like
Ooh,
5 years ago
good
self?
question. Yeah.
What were you asking?
Can we do both?
Oh, man. Well, I got to think about that. But like, maybe, okay, you know what? Maybe younger self.
Let's do that. Yeah.
Like
younger
little self.
Yeah.
Child.
How old is this version of you?
Oh, man.
How old do they feel?
Well, I'll just be really vulnerable. I remember like one of the saddest moments of my life was when I was like 7. And I remember I was so like depressed. I missed my mom, and I remember watching through the window of my bedroom, and we lived in apartments, and every car that drove by, I like hoped that it was my mom pulling up. And so I would probably go to that person and go like, your mom loves you, and like, you are loved, and I would probably say like, there's a creator that loves you infinitely, and you are infinite. You are worth being infinitely loved, and you have so much value, and you deserve like, all the love this world can offer. So don't feel unloved, but like, I don't know, just know that you are loved. That's maybe what I would say. I don't know. Something like that.
Stay in the fields. You're doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a powerful message for him. I think it's, you can feel the power of finding those words even now. And I think it's good to check in and make sure that he gets those pep talks every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, I mean, now like that little boy is like well fed, and I'm honoring him, doing the things that he wanted to be when he grew up, So
it seems like it's been easier to find creativity, or creativity has maybe been something that has helped in the healing.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But also creativity, like I would only feel creative when like I wasn't depressed. But now I'm sort of like, no matter how I'm feeling, I like owe it to myself and the world to just like offer my authenticity. And what's crazy is like, this opportunity in my life right now, I'm sort of like being forced into this land of and place of opportunity where I can be 1,000 times more creative, And so maybe it's like the universe allowed like this unlocking once I like unearthed my authentic self. You know what I mean?
I often feel like in healing, there's some very serendipitous rewards on that path.
Yeah.
When things are synchronized, there's usually, I like to feel like there's a reason.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. There's a new chapter coming. So there might be some little changes or things that we try in the next few months. But James is going to be moving on over to Nashville.
Yeah. So if you're a Nashville listener, let me buy you a drink.
Yeah. James needs to make some friends.
Yeah, I am taking applications for friends, but you don't have no qualifications needed.
No qualifications.
I guess you can't be like a weirdo.
Oh, wow. See, now you're defining things.
Yeah.
You know what? Give it some thought. And maybe
just shoot your shot with me.
What if we created a Google
job
form?
application or an application for my friend, being a friend.
Friendication.
I don't think anyone would apply. Like I'm the one who needs to be like throwing myself out there to be friend. Can I be your friend? Well, I'm really busy. Like I was thinking about like, because I'm leaving in 3 weeks, and I was thinking like, I hope nobody like tries to have like a going away party for me, because like it'll be super depressing of how many people don't show up to that.
No, that's so
You know what I
sad.
mean?
No.
Well, because like leaving, like there's you, and then like my brother and his wife, and then that's about it. And I have a job with coworkers that I love, but
they like you. You have friends.
But then like my kids, my kids probably wouldn't show up even if they had the choice. But they'll be in Tennessee though, so
Well, you are right behind him. So exciting things for James.
Yeah.
Please wish him well. And we're still going to be providing really exciting stuff. Fun interviews and more conversations, more candid conversations infused with lots of vulnerability. But that's where all the good stuff is.
Right.
So thank you so much, Delightful Humans, for joining us for this episode of Delightfully Dysfunctional. And please check out some of the freebies on my website, coachkeilani.com. Like, subscribe, share with a friend. Help this podcast be found by other people who might find it helpful or insightful. And thank you again for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, Delightful Humans.
Bye-bye.